Thank you so much for all of your support in this project, whether it's by tuning into these videos, sharing them, liking them on social media, or even donating to the GoFundMe. I am incredibly grateful for your support. I got to choose 3 really wonderful organizations who are supporting artists in this very difficult time of COVID-19. And I know why I love the organizations, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about them. So I have interviewed the leaders of these 3 organizations so that you can learn a little bit more about who they are, what their organization does, and how their organization has been impacted by the pandemic. One of the organizations that I have chosen to support is a company that is near and dear to my heart, the dell'Arte Opera Ensemble. They are doing some wonderful things to help support young opera artists in this time. And I was very happy to be able to interview Christopher Fecteau, the artistic director of dell'Arte, who was able to tell us a little bit about what the company has been doing in this time of COVID and how they are going to move forward. So the first thing that I wanted to ask you and have you tell our viewers a little bit about is maybe a little bit about you and what made you want to start dell'Arte Opera Ensemble, and what is dell'Arte Opera Ensemble?
Well, 20 years ago, 2000 was when we really started. There weren't many organizations offering much for people that were right out of school in the way of initial opportunities. And so what we started out doing was more a series of readings where people would prepare their roles individually in coachings, and then we'd have 2 or 3 rehearsals, and then we'd get in together, have 1 rehearsal maybe, and then a semi-public reading for, family and friends. And sometimes it was just the singers that were in the room. As more small companies came on the scene in New York, we were able to sort of fill a different part of the gap. At first, more standard repertoire kind of projects where if you didn't have your first Mimi on your resume, it was a place that you could get your first Mimi or your first Chonard. Because if you don't have that first one on your resume, it's hard for a lot of companies to have the confidence to hire you. And then there were more companies doing that kind of thing for younger singers in New York. So we were able to, again, open up different opportunities for people to look at some of the early Baroque pieces, Caccini and Cavalli and Monteverdi, which are now becoming such an important part of the repertoire, and to do them with a real Baroque ensemble, and to learn the style issues, and to work on the language, which is really quite elaborate in those pieces, or to work on more modern pieces, to do your first premiere or your first time through one of the Carlisle Floyd pieces that are more standard, or things like that. At first it was just singers, and then we started to take on the mentorship of young directors and music staff, and even our design staff. And connecting those people who were maybe at the beginning of their career, they were doing their 2nd or 3rd production in opera, and maybe needed a little bit of mentorship from somebody more experienced, but at the same time were ready for a real production of their own. Yeah. So bridging that gap again.
Excellent. Excellent. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of the opportunities that dell'Arte offers to artists? What are the performance opportunities, the training opportunities? What is it that you do?
The season is, our opportunities are really based around kind of like a season, starting with auditions in January, and then casting by February, March. So people have a chance to go through the callback process, sometimes preparing excerpts for that as you would in any professional company. And then we start with classes in language for diction and for the sort of syntax and translation skills that they need. Movement classes, movement and acting classes that are sort of combined with a wonderful faculty member named Chuck Hudson. And at the same time, people are simultaneously going through private coachings through the spring. So there's about 3 months of behind the scenes work before everybody gets together, at least for rehearsals. And then by the time July rolls around and we roll into staging rehearsals, people are truly ready to go. They've got the historical background, they've got the linguistic background, they've done some acting work, both general acting and movement work, and also integrating that into their role study, as well as studying every element of the character, so that when they walk into that first rehearsal, they're super prepared, and they can function at a truly professional level. And that's what every singer wants to do when they do a professional job, but they're not always prepared to put that process together with what happens in an academic program. It's sometimes it's just not integrated as well. They maybe have most of the skills, or they're missing 1 or 2 skills, but they have a chance to just put it all together and to start thinking about what their process is going to be. It's almost never linear. So they have to find their own style, but we're there to sort of guide their role study technique.
The singers and any of the staff, they do not have to pay to be a part of this program, correct?
That's correct. Early on in the early years of the program, there was a sort of a cooperative fee where people paid for a little bit for a space and a pianist and that sort of thing. But for about the last 12 years, there have been no fees. And for about the last 7, 8, 9 years, I think it is, we've paid small stipends to the singers. And every year we try to raise the stipends a little bit.
Yeah.
We also try to provide scores whenever possible, so that sort of gateway expense is at least lessened, and if not eliminated.
Right. Okay, so that brings us to the current day. So when mid-March rolled around and the world seemed to come to an end, where were you in the process of preparing the 2020 season?
We had virtually completed our casting. There might have been 1 or 2 gaps in the casting. Most of the participation agreements and contracts from our staff were complete. The design process had gone through its initial talks with the directors and the designers. All of our contracts were signed for venues. We had our requests in with our rehearsal venue, our normal rehearsal venues. So things were all systems go. We had a nice festival planned, and even though it was a little bit more modest festival this year because of some scheduling issues with Baruch and with La Mama before that, we still had, I think, what was going to be a really lovely festival with two great pieces, a standard piece, Anna Bolena by Donizetti, and the second production, or I should say the first professional production of Juana by Carla Lucero and Alicia Gaspar de Alba, about Juana Inés de la Cruz, who was a Mexican nun in the 17th century, who was kind of a radical nun.
And so when the decision was made to cancel the season, what kinds of things did you start to formulate in your mind that you were going to do to try to still keep the singers engaged and keep the company still out there in the public eye, and and so on and so forth. I mean, there are companies that are now doing virtual performances and trying to think outside the box. So
Mhm.
what did you want to do to try to keep everyone engaged?
Well, initially there was a lot, and there's still a lot of free content, and some of it's really marvelous. Um, I didn't feel like dell'Arte's place was to be putting out a lot of free content for audiences, because as much as we love our audiences and as important as they are to us, our first responsibility really is to the singers.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to think that if we're going to do sort of virtual kind of performances, I wanted to get to the point before we did that, that we knew how it could be useful to the singers in terms of understanding technology or using technology in creative ways, that it wasn't just a one-off, it wasn't just a quick, we have to get content out there. The first thing I wanted to do was give the sense to the cast that these projects are still alive. We've had a book club going for the last 8 weeks. We just almost finished it. Next Tuesday is the last installment for the novel upon which Juana is based, and the novelist is going to be with us next week in the meeting to answer questions. She's also one of the co-librettists of the opera, Alicia. So it'll be a chance for the cast to meet her for the first time, albeit virtually.
Right.
There have been coachings continuing on the repertoire and on other repertoire as singers need to do so. There have been language classes. We had 7 weeks of twice a week with Lucy Yates, wonderful Italian teacher. Pablo Zinger did some diction coaching for Juana in some group sessions. That was very successful. Chuck Hudson did his normal May week. We expanded it to 2 weeks so that we could split between the two casts. Fantastic. Obviously, he wasn't able to do as much of his movement work, but still we were able to do some movement work, and he did much more in-depth character work and text work during that period of time. I would say the sort of new, what is old is new again that we're trying right now. I had mentioned before that early on we were all about standard repertoire. And this time between, for many, many singers, has turned out to be a chance to explore things that they might not have had time for, to learn a role that they should have in their repertoire, but they haven't had time because they're working on too many projects, or to get more in depth with their translation work, things like that. And so we've started a number, I would say, I think it's 6 different operas that there are partial casts at least, and in some cases almost complete casts for standard repertoire pieces. Marriage of Figaro, Elixir, Rigoletto, Falstaff, and 2 Strauss, Ariadne auf Naxos and Rosenkavalier. So people are doing the translation work and having initial coachings virtually online, and then hopefully in the spring we can do some readings so that this period of time they can get another important role under their belt, and to work on it with a group of colleagues that they love and appreciate, and also to strengthen the sort of bonds between our roster of singers, not only from this year, but also including a few people from recent alumni rosters.
So tell me a little bit about the artist or the Alumni Artist Relief Fund.
Back in March, we were quite aware that even after we had paid out or were about to pay out half stipends for the summer, and we decided we would try to get them out as soon as possible so that people would have the use of that modest amount of money, that there were going to be people who needed resources for just the basics, like groceries and rent and that sort of thing, I decided that I would reach out to a few people that I thought could help start to put together a fund. We had one angel donor who put up $5,000 to begin with, and even put a little bit more. And we've had some other fundraisers. And in the first 3 months, we distributed, I think it was almost $10,000 to anywhere between 6 or 7 people in a month to as many as 12. Because we just felt like we had to help wherever we could.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that you have been able to not only pay 50% of the fees that you were going to pay your artists for the summer season that got canceled, that you were also able to create a fund to just offset some expenses for artists that needed it. It's quite an extraordinary gift.
We're pretty proud of it, and we're so grateful to the people that have put money into the fund and made sure that there was at least something for the people who are struggling. Yes. The partial stipends are, I should say, are in addition to a full stipend next summer if people are interested in continuing next summer. They'll all have they'll have right of first refusal. Around the first of the year, we'll ask people to make a commitment, and if they do, it will be a full stipend next year.
Well, Chris, I just want to thank you very much on behalf of all artists. I'll be the one that represents all artists of what you're doing to really support those singers who really need you right now. They just really, really need you. And for you to still be able to give in this time when they feel like everything has been taken away, it's an extraordinary gift. And I'm very thankful for that personally.
Well, we're really thankful for the people that are making it possible. The fund that you've created is very exciting, and I love the collaborations that you're doing with friends. They're wonderful and lovely, and a great sign of, in a way, the possibilities of this time.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty delicious side benefit of the work you're doing to raise funds. And everyone that's contributing, even knowing that there's no festival coming this summer, I'm so grateful to them for helping us keep the work going, even though it seems much more underground. Yeah. Look forward to, in August, 4 sort of movie nights where we will be broadcasting, streaming 4 productions from our archives, and people have a chance to see some of our artists in action from previous years.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Regina. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to help support dell'Arte Opera Ensemble, the Artist Relief Tree, or the Hochstein Music School, please visit my GoFundMe page and give as much as you can. Even $1 would help so much in reaching our goal. Thanks so much, and keep enjoying the music.